Hello, students. So, at Austin Kung Fu Academy, it's really important that you get a punching bag of some sort for classes so you can feel what your techniques are doing. I am going to review 6 different kinds of punching bags that are very common and give you kind of the pros and cons of each type so that you can decide what kind you might want to get. So the first bag I want to talk about is the inflatable punching bag. Now, right off the bat, I want to say that I really recommend this, especially if you're just starting Kung Fu, if you're a beginner to Kung Fu. I really recommend this option. It's not that expensive compared to the other bags. It's about $20, so it's not a huge investment. If you're still kind of wanting to proceed with caution into your Kung Fu journey, this is such a great place to start because of the price, but also the whole thing is a striking surface. You don't have to aim much. That's why some of these have targets. So eventually you can start working on your aim. But if you miss, it's okay. The other thing that I really like about it is that when you hit it, it comes back. But if it comes back and it might bop you, it's not a huge penalty. You're not going to get hurt. But it does come back to alert you like, hey, you got to block that thing now. Now, after you punch it, you have to block it, because it's coming back. It's pretty easy to assemble. And the main con of this is that there's not a lot of resistance it gives you. You can literally touch it with your finger and it will move, right? But again, this is a great way for beginners to start, or someone who just wants to have a little bit of touch with whatever technique they're doing, but they don't necessarily need to feel a blast. They just need to feel some sort of contact, okay? So this is something that I highly recommend if you're just starting your Kung Fu journey. Okay, the next one is the Punchbox Kids bag. It's got different names, but you can kind of differentiate this by a smaller, like a skinnier base than the one you see behind it, which I'm going to talk about next. But this one, okay, I'm going to be honest. I don't really have the highest recommendation for it. But that being said, it's not bad. Let me talk about some of the pros. Compared to the inflatable bag, this one has a smaller target area, so you are forced to aim, so it helps you develop your aim. And it's got a little bit more kind of like action to it. That's both a pro and a con. The snapback is very fast, so when you hit it, it comes right back at you. So maybe not the best thing for beginners if they're trying to work on their defense, because you still have to think like, oh, punch, then block. So punch, then, oh, I got hit. I didn't get a chance to think about my block. So I mean that could be good because it might help you build the reflexes. But at the beginning stages, you want to have some time to be able to process that before you go faster. Um, these range from, depending on the kind you get, between 30 to 60 bucks. And you have a small target area, and this target area is a bladder that you pump with a bicycle pump and a needle, and blow up. So this is actually a balloon. Okay, so it's decent. It's kind of fun to work with because of the fast action. But if you're kind of trying to learn a little bit more complicated routine, the snapback, the quick snapback might be a little annoying because you're trying to learn and the thing is already hitting you. So take it for what it's worth. So it's got the spring bottom and it goes very quick. I kind of put this as an average for recommendations. Not horrible. I'm not saying don't get it, but if I were to be given a first choice, it would probably not be this one. Okay, so the next is the Everlast Reflex Bag. Now, this might look similar to the last one, but look at the base. It's thicker, so it has a much heavier, sturdy stand to it. And look at this. It's got a spongy part right underneath it, so the surface area is a little bit bigger. Best of all, it gives you a little bit time to rethink and react when you hit it. So when I hit it, it's not going to snap back as fast. It does come back, but it's a little bit slower. You see that? And so that gives you time, and it's got a lot more sway, so you can really take your time to develop and learn these techniques and do kind of longer motions that Kung Fu does. So the last one was more about boxing and a quick reaction with kind of limited arsenal. But with this, you can use a lot wider variety of Kung Fu techniques. Now, the con is that you do have only this as a space and the rest of it is a metal rod. So your arsenal of techniques might be a little limited. But the heavy base and the slower moving snapback is definitely a big bonus. And this used to be my favorite bag. I would definitely give this as a strong recommendation. The price point, though, is different, all right? The price point for one of these guys is probably between $70 and $90. So it is more expensive. Next up is my new favorite bag. This is the Everlast Cardio Fit Bag. It's very similar to the last bag, except that if you can see, it's got a much longer, bigger surface area. Now, the con of this is that if you see the base, it's not as thick as the last one. So it's not as heavy standing. But the interesting thing about this one is that the spring is up so that it absorbs the force here. So you actually don't need it to be super duper strong because the force dissipates right here rather than at the bottom. So this one moves, and it moves kind of at the same kind of slower pace as the last bag. And the surface area, again, is the big deal on this one. You have a whole variety of techniques. You can even throw in like knee techniques, and you can even kick this thing. You know, there's all kinds of things you can do with it. And here's one that I really love. You can actually even do Tai Chi techniques with these guys and really get a good feeling of more internal arts stuff. This one is more expensive. This one is pretty much in the $90 to $100 range. Okay, so just wanted to let you know.
So the con about this bag is that you can't adjust the height. So it's geared mostly for adults or maybe taller kids.
Okay, so I wanted to include these bags. This is called a Wave Master, and it's characterized by its very thick, heavy base down below and a pretty solid punching bag structure up top. This one is more geared for children, and the main thing about these Wave Masters is it's more about developing power, all right? Being able to hit harder with the bags without it doing much. So while you are able to develop more power, you won't develop your reflexes as much. The other bags that I mentioned come back at you, so that trains the offense and the defense. This one doesn't train your defense as much because, I mean, it does sort of snap back, but you're not really thinking too much about that. You're more thinking about, really smashing it. You can even, push it, for kind of grappling techniques and getting that strength training in. Again, this kind of bag is more geared for children because of its size, but it definitely has its value. You're gonna be spending probably 100 to 150, 175 bucks for one of these things. And finally, I wanted to introduce you to the Wave Master Double XL. All right. So sometimes they call it the adults Wave Master. So as you can notice, it's a lot bigger than the kids one, right? So with this bag, you notice that it's a huge surface area. It's almost like a wall striking surface. And you probably notice just how thick this base is. Holds about 100 pounds of water. So this thing is heavy. So obviously, this is all about developing your strength behind your hit, right? Or your tackle. I mean, it doesn't move very much, even if you try to push it over, right? So again, this is all for strength. It's not much for developing reaction or reflexes. It's more about just developing your structural power. Good training tool, but it is missing that ingredient. I don't really recommend this one unless that is specifically what you want to start working on. This is more expensive. This is about $350, all right? Sometimes you might be able to find it for $300, depending on where you go shopping. But it is definitely the priciest of them all. So that's a rundown of the bags. I hope you found this helpful. Really, no matter what kind you get, you can do no wrong. Let me just say that, because as long as you have something to make contact with the techniques, you're in good shape. So really, you can do no wrong no matter what type you get. I just wanted to give you a breakdown of the pros and cons of each. All right, so grab yourself a bag and let's get to training.